discussion. NIL, one-time transfer, where we're at as a program. I'll make an opening statement. I sat on the Oversight Committee 2 years ago, and we talked about a lot of issues of where things were going as a AFCA board. And a lot of it was precipitated when the NCAA lost their court ruling 9-0 to the Supreme Court, which was a slapdown. We had heard as coaches, even though President Emmert was testifying in Congress and this court case was looming, our sources had told us to be prepared for a change. We had very intense meetings as head coaches. I saw Dabo Sweeney nose to nose with the conference commissioner and NCAA people about how these ideas were bad. We had expressed all those things, and if you can get 130 coaches to agree on something, you could probably solve healthcare in our nation right now. But the framing is this arguments and these things that we were presenting as coaches were just self-serving arguments and positions. And so we'd anticipated this was going to happen. I was concerned that some of the rollout of how it was going to happen was going to be somewhat, I don't know how the word would be, certainly I knew there was going to be some unintended consequences. And the idea was the NIL was, a guy wants to be able to, sign autographs at a car dealership, and he should be able to do that. A guy should be able to, if he wants to go down and have some place that offers him free pizza, do that. And we're all supportive of what's going on for the student athlete. We're also supportive of the fact of, what their ability to maybe move from school to school. You want guys that are on your team. We want guys that are on our team that want to be here. If a guy does not want to be here, that's going to cause some really, really unsettling things in your locker room. The vantage point from coaches was, you're going to go through life where you're the second team guy and you don't like it. There's life lessons to kind of stick it out and be committed. And we said all those things. That didn't resonate. I thought a point that should have resonated was when guys are in the back end of their career, meaning they're in their fourth year, and they transfer, the number of credits they lose going into the next institution is significant. And it'll be interesting at what I believe, if we're truly saying we're here to make sure guys get a meaningful degree and matriculate through, that somehow has got that point got lost. I don't know where it went because you're looking at guys that are going to have to go another 2 years of school. But nonetheless, that cocktail of NIL combined with one-time transfer, combined with, okay, the NCAA says we're really going to be firm on tampering, was an unattainable. I mean, it was like, I just saw this is going to be a bad movie. I told them all, I said, I coached in the Southwest Conference a long time ago, Josh, before you had whiskers. And back then, I mean, this is what was going on. I said, it's like Groundhog Day, guys. It's going to be a bad movie. And I think that there's certainly good things that occurred out of this, but the unintended consequences, when you see some of this stuff, I think when everything distills, I think we're going to have to recalibrate some of our thoughts. To our point here at Wyoming, a lot of what happened, I shouldn't say what happened, a lot of the guys who transferred, we at the beginning of the year, I was looking through that roster and I was looking at, okay, how many guys have already got their degree? This year, how many guys will want to declare for the NFL? Typically, the NFL vets 600 guys. This year, they're vetting 1,600. So a guy that's on the back end of his career is now making a decision. Okay, do I play another year? Do I move on with my professional life? Do I say I'm going to throw myself in the transfer portal to see what's out there? And if nothing comes along, then I'm just going to go work a job. Or in fact, am I going to take my skill set at the tail end and transfer someplace else? So to say that everybody that went in that transfer portal, we probably knew, I think that would be less than honest, but I would say 90%. And so I know much was said. I haven't commented. I know our athletic director commented. I'm not a social media guy. Hell, the guy at the coffee shop was concerned about what's going on. We knew it, guys. And so we had a plan in place to identify the needs that we were going to need to make sure that the guys that we would bring in were going to fit into the culture that we had and address the immediate needs that we had, but not go to the point where we lose our compass of being a developmental program. There's going to be certain guys, Logan Wilson, I don't care who would, he wasn't going to leave Wyoming. Chad Muma wasn't going to leave Wyoming. Josh Allen was not going to leave Wyoming. Some of our other guys might. And so what had happened with that, it did not surprise us. And we already started to work our numbers with the number. We started out the year with 0 scholarships concerning how our roster was set. And so we earmarked several of those guys, and then we put some of those scholarships back to identify. And we tried to figure out where we would be within the goalpost on what needs we might need and how many scholarships we might need. So that's my statement. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions concerning that. It's Pandora's box. I'm going to talk specifically as the head coach at Wyoming. So I'm going to take the screen from left to right. Ryan, you're up.
Greg, with those guys you mentioned, I mean, that kind of defines the developmental program. Those guys being, speaking of stars, they didn't have a lot of stars and now they're great NFL players. Are you concerned that your developmental program now will be developing players for Power 5 schools?
I think it would be a misstep on my part to say that that's not going to occur. But I do know this, though, that I believe we've developed a program enough that our guys here, we're going to present them the fact that they can get a meaningful degree, play in a great conference, and have a chance to play in the NFL. We have a proven track record of that. You're going to see a guy that, I mean, hell, we got a guy that's starting middle linebacker, the Cincinnati Bengals. Their head coach called me up and he thinks he's going to be in the Pro Bowl shortly. You're going to see Chad be drafted very high. You look at the number. So we can present that like other conferences can. Sometimes guys think the grass is greener or they want to play maybe closer to home. We're going to have some of that. But you know what? We can't be concerned about the lion in the bush, Ryan. We got to stay true to what we are. We're going to set a couple scholarships back each year to address that. But I'll be damned if I don't recruit Logan Wilson. I mean, we're going to. And if that means, and Logan Wilson wasn't recruited by anybody. And maybe some people thought we stretched on it. We recruited Josh Harshman. Okay, Josh is going to be, I don't know what the hell he's going to be, an eye doctor or something now, but he was a valuable team member. He's a team captain. We're going to recruit Chad Muma. We're going to recruit Isaiah Nair. And we're going to lose a couple. And we'll move forward. Answer your question, Ryan? Got it. Okay, I'll take it. Josh, you're up.
Hey, Craig, just on the topic of NIL, is there anything specific outreach type things that the programs, kind of maybe emphasize during the off season, just with the whole kind of whirlwind nature of that topic?
Yeah, this is the 2-ton gorilla because there's 2 arms with it. There's the the arm of NIL where guys are looking at, and we had some players sign some NIL deals this year, and it wasn't for tons of money, but it, you know, I don't know if I have the liberty to say, but it was a pretty broad-based deal. But hell, it was all those guys complaining about they didn't have enough money to go on a date on Saturday night. I was like, I should sign up for this deal. Our department has done a good job. But I can tell you that the stuff that's going on, and I'm going to depart here a little bit, is the real concern that everybody has is it's not the, you know, the dealership, a car dealership to where you may even get a car you can use. We're talking about the 2-ton gorilla where all of a sudden there's a stash of cash, where one school's got $30 million loaded up right now, and they're just going to be like the New York Yankees. That's the stuff that we're all concerned about. Wyoming is not going to enter that market. That's not who we are. We don't have those resources, but that's not who we are. But I think we're going to continue to explore to see what we can do for our players, and venture into that. Some of it's going to be education. Some of it's going to be trial on air. We're probably a half step behind some other people, but I'm perfectly comfortable with that. Cody, you're up.
Greg, you said you knew about 90% of those guys were going to leave. Did you or your coaching staff ever try to get guys to stay, or do you guys just think, well, you don't want to be here?
Some of our assistant coaches might have probed a little bit on what you're thinking. But I can tell you this, around here, we got a really good program, and we want players that are bought in to play Cowboy tough football. You got to be all in. And, you know, maybe if there's some decisions that are being made of some advice that's ill-advised from who knows what, some third party, maybe we could present some information that might counter some of that information. But most of these guys were kind of like, you know what, best of luck to you. See ya down the road and see how things go. Tracy, you're up.
Yeah, Coach, when you think about it too, though, say with some of the kids that you were able to bring in, like the quarterback from Utah State, or the Big Ten player that you brought in, lineman, can you see some benefit for you? Because like the guy at Utah State gets forced out when the new coach comes in, right? The guy from the Big Ten school gets maybe doesn't live up quite to what they expect, but he can still be a good player at year level. So can you see some benefits there?
Yeah, I do. What I think is important to do is just to not to venture into the abyss to where you just watch the tape and you hear, okay, he's at Wisconsin. We know the defensive coordinator of Wisconsin really well. We also know this young man's from Denver East. Lot of connections. Knew that he had a hip surgery that kept him out for a year. Knew what type of player he was, what kind of character he had. Same thing with the corner from Ole Miss. Knew his position coach, knew the previous coordinator. So that's what I'm saying. We had a plan, and there's an opportunity for us to move forward. Now I can tell you this, typically after a bowl game, you know what? I'm back on my farm in Nebraska looking at the cattle, you know, and having a couple beers with my dad. During that time, there was a whole lot of evaluation. We were in this office grinding on all those positions. So that took up some time, but we were happy to do it. And the way I look at it, it's going to give us an opportunity to move forward. Okay, Ryan, you're up.
I have a two-part question about quarterbacks. Part one, if you could do it again, would you handle the Chambers-Levi situation the same, or would you do it differently? And how do you feel about, you know, Peasley and Svoboda and Caden and the guys you're developing? How do you see that race in the spring?
Going back to the first step, our goal here is always going to do everything we can to put our football team in position to win. you know, there was a lot that went into making the decision on changing from Sean to Levi. A lot of things behind the scenes, a lot of conversation that is going to be kept between Sean and myself. I'm not going to go into that. Some really honest dialogue. And so that decision that was made in a very thoughtful manner for the betterment of our football team. And so there's no, we do it the same thing again. Okay. As far as our optimism on the quarterbacks that we have coming in, we're very optimistic. You know, if you look at Andrew's performance against Air Force, big time performance. You know, Coach Wells and I are friends. Matt recruited Andrew. I knew Blake Anderson. I mean, I knew him, and I also knew the quarterback coach that is at Arkansas State that coached that quarterback that went to Utah State. And so we gathered a lot of information. And so it wasn't like we looked at Andrew saying, this guy's one of these prima donna quarterbacks that doesn't feel like XYZ. He got his degree. I think he's an excellent player. I think our system is going to speak to his skill sets that he can do really well. And so we're excited about him. And you talk about Evan, you got a guy that's 6'4", 235 pounds, and has got a really good release. And so he's going to need to be developed, but there's some development there. I mean, off the tape that I saw, he's got a really, really good release. It's smooth. The ball comes out easy out of his hands, and he's a big, strong guy. And, you know, Hank Gibbs is here, and we've got a couple Cadens coming in. And so I can tell you this, though, Ryan, we knew we were going to need to sign more than one to make sure that we could continue with quarterback run to a certain degree in case we incurred an injury. And when we lost both of them, okay, let's make some adjustments here. And I think we came up with a good plan. So hopefully that answers your question. Got it? Okay, Cody, you're up.
You said numerous times, obviously, Craig, you're not going to build this program through the portal. But are you encouraged with how many quality guys you guys were able to get from Power 5 schools? Mm-hmm. But also, this may sound crazy, but was it kind of fun to peruse the transfer portal and look up different guys?
Oh, fun. I don't know. I felt like I was in the NFL in the player personnel department, you know. What became apparent was the attractiveness of the University of Wyoming. And sometimes when you live in your own little bubble here, while you may think that everything is great here, but sometimes the perception on the outside is not. What we were pleased with was the attractiveness of where we were at and how our program was. And so in today's world, Cody, it was really, you can get all the tape you want. I mean, it's out there. And so we went through a lot of tape. And then the other thing that I think was encouraging was just some of the connections that we knew from where these guys were coming from. I also knew that maybe some of my past history of some of the guys that are in the portal, you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. And you didn't want to get snake bit. You didn't want to put that to where you brought somebody in your locker room and they poisoned that locker room. And so I was encouraged, not to the point where we're going to say, okay, like some of my colleagues are out there and they're signing well over half their class from that. We're not going to go down that road. We won't sustain why we built this facility. We won't sustain our culture by doing that. But I do think, I'm confident we addressed our needs. We had a plan. That plan was put into place and we addressed those needs. Ryan, your hand's up.
Greg, I know you're an old school guy, but this is a new era you're dealing with. How do you feel about coaches needing to, communicate constantly with players and kind of re-recruit them on a yearly basis, kind of with this portal option?
Well, one of the things that became apparent to me, after the year, you do a lot of the first place you look at is yourself to see where you can improve. And one of the things that I felt like I needed to get better on was connecting more with our players. I know a lot of times as head coaches in an FBS program, I'm not saying that, we're going to be like Bear. There's one guy I do know, he coaches up in a tower and stuff like that, that I wasn't going to be that kind of guy, but I needed to get more engaged and let players know where they stood, where we were going. And then not so much recruit all the time, but I think people want feedback. Even if it's negative feedback, they want to know that they matter. And I think that we can do a little bit better. Now, I'm not saying that's why we had the number of guys that we went in the portal, but I can tell you this, that's the first thing I came back to is, okay, with our younger guys that are on our program right now, to make sure they know that that they're important. And you can say, hey, you know what, we care about you. We care about you. Well, what means that you care about you? Well, are you critiquing me on that film? Am I being watched? Am I being evaluated? Am I being given feedback on what I need to do to get better? Am I being given feedback that, you know what, my presence here on this football team matters? I think any coach is going to look at that and say what they can do better. But what we will not do, Ryan, is begin to compromise, telling one guy he's the greatest thing since post-Toasties and you're going to play and you're going to get in the National Football League and you're going to date the cheerleader and create this, unreal deal, because all you're doing is you're being unrealistic with guys. And so we're going to continue to want guys that want to be here. Every one of these guys that we either recruited out of the portal or these guys in the second signing date or the first signing date, we've been very, very transparent with them. And it's interesting. One of the parents said it was really refreshing, our approach, as opposed to, we got to know right now, and this is the greatest place ever, and high pressure tactics. They said no. And I said, this is why I think we have a pretty stable program. Cody.
Greg, it's easy to speculate why guys left. Levi, Isaiah, maybe you don't pass the ball enough. Do you need to shake up this offensive scheme at all to make it more modern?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you this right now, Cody. We wanted to throw the ball more, but it's hard. It's hard when you go out there and watch practice and see a hits route get thrown in the dirt. So, all this, some clamoring, I don't know where it's at. Well, Coach Bohl's going to just do 3 yards of cloud of dust. I can't tell you this, Cody. An edge that we're going to have at Wyoming is we're going to be more physical at the point of attack. And we cannot lose track of that. When you got 3 inches of snow on the field and you're playing Colorado State, you better be able to be physical. But to say that we're going to be so one-dimensional because, by God, Coach Bohl is just going to run it down your throat, that's a misstep. We want to throw the ball. I just like to have some quarterbacks who can throw the ball. All right. So, and I think we've got some. And so when you one-dimensional and everything else, we got help. We lined up and empty. We did all that stuff. But it's pretty disheartening when you're out there trying to throw a bubble screen. And we ended up working practice on throwing a hitch on 1st and 10. I mean, it's ridiculous where we were at. Okay, so just, if you're reading through the lines, we're going to throw the ball better. We're not going to be one-dimensional, but I'll be damned if we get around here and think we're going to win the Mountain West Conference Championship by throwing it 80 times 80%. That ain't going to happen.
Thanks for all your time, first of all. I'm just curious, just speaking as Wyoming head coach, not the AFCA president, like, I mean, NFL free agency, there's a window where that happens. Would you like to see
Yeah.
portal close during the season or something like that?
I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you the overarching view, as I said in the meeting. Everybody is grappling with how to balance the player's ability to transfer. And then what I was encouraged about in the oversight committee, we had 2 student athletes that were in the meeting, and their deep concern about how to move forward as a football team, that they need to be able to practice their skill set. And to do that, if you lose all your offensive linemen in the transfer portal, and all of a sudden, yeah, you're a wide receiver, but you still have to practice. And so the student athletes brought up the fact that they would like to see some semblance of dates and guidelines. And so we're commingling, moving this agenda forward and balancing what transpires with the ability to leave, and then how to balance that with, you're not talking about a track athlete, or you're not talking about a wrestler. You're talking about a football team, a team. And to play football, you need a team. And when you have guys that are coming and going, it hurts the guys that are trying to exercise their skill. So I was really encouraged that the student athletes are looking at that, saying, we've got to have some guidelines here. And so how that comes about, Ryan, I don't know. We better figure it out. We better figure it out in a pretty quick hurry. I can tell you that coaches are looking, this is from the AFCA, coaches are looking for some direction. Coaches are looking for some vision. Coaches are looking for a clear path to move forward, and so are the student athletes. And right now, we are at an inflection point. I've coached 39 years. I've never seen us as disjointed as what we are. And I've been a head coach 19 years. We got to get a plan here, because right now we're rudderless. So your answer to your question is yes. And not only myself, I was encouraged that the players are saying we need something because they want to exercise their skill. Cody.
Taking pride in is probably not the right word for it, Craig, but you've had 5 guys, I believe, land at Power 5 schools. Does it show you guys that you're developing the right way and you're recruiting the right way when these guys go to these bigger programs like that?
Well, I've always said this, Cody, there's power programs and so the Power 5, here's what I would say. If you looked the year before we went into COVID, we had more guys on NFL roster than anybody else in the Mountain West, more than 3/4 of the Pac-12 and more than half of the Big 12. So no, it doesn't. I'm looking, going, we got damn good players. The barometer is the number of NFL people that come through here. I'm just not talking about area scout. I'm talking about general managers that come through here. Our guys get looked at. And so, no, it does not surprise me.